My father was the only Arab in Ferguson between my ages of 2 to 13 or 14. And over years, when he would come back, he would always go around, looking in phone books for other ones and calling them up. And he was a wonderful storyteller, and this is called Storyteller. Where is the door to the story? Is the door left open? When he sat by our beds, the days rushed past like water. Driftwood, bricks, heavy cargoes disappearing downstream. No matter, no matter. Even the trees outside our screens tipped their cooling leaves to listen. We swam so easily to the stone village, women in thick dresses, men with smoky breath. We sat around the fire, pitching in our own twigs. The world curled around us, sizzled and popped. We dropped our troubles into the lap of the storyteller, and they turned into someone else's. My father was one of the many, many Palestinian people in the world who have always believed that Palestinian and Jewish people are brothers and sisters, not enemies, and who have always rejected the notion that peace can never be made in that small land, Israel, called Palestine before. And he could have talked about that from this very podium, but he talked about that all around St. Louis when I was a child, and he talked about it all his life. He talked about it in his own books. His last book was called Does the Land Remember Me? A Memoir of Palestine. And it really saddened him that people didn't have more imagination about how to solve things. And so this is a poem I wrote on that topic. I only lived in Jerusalem 1 year. After we left Missouri, lived there 1 year, and then came the '67 war, after which my parents decided quite randomly to move to Texas. And I've stayed there all my life, but I've traveled a lot. So this poem called Jerusalem, I kept going back to Jerusalem over the years, taking my later husband, my son, our son, going back with my father countless times. My grandmother lived to be 106. And though she herself was a refugee who had lost her home in the city of Jerusalem, she was never bitter. And she always said, we just need to listen to each other's stories. We share more than we don't share. What is wrong with people? They didn't understand all the weapons and all the blame and all the bitterness and all the seizing and all the greed. They could never understand it. And it's really important these days, because things are quite bad there, that anyone who hasn't spent a lot of time in the region know that there are so many people who believe it doesn't have to be that way. So many people, and they're never in the headlines, almost never. So there's a quote from a Swedish poet at the top, and he wrote me a letter. I've never been to Jerusalem. I don't know if you want to use that quote. I said, no, it's perfect. Let's be the same wound if we must bleed. Let's fight side by side, even if the enemy is ourselves. I am yours, you are mine. Jerusalem, I'm not interested in who suffered the most. I'm interested in people getting over it. Once, when my father was a boy, a stone hit him on the head. Hair would never grow there. Our fingers found the tender spot in its riddle. The boy who has fallen stands up. A bucket of pears in his mother's doorway welcomes him home. The pears are not crying. Later, his friend, who threw the stone, says he was aiming at a bird. And my father starts growing wings. Each carries a tender spot, something our lives forgot to give us. A man builds a house and says, I am native now. A woman speaks to a tree in place of her son, and olives come. A child's poem says, I don't like wars. They end up with monuments. He's painting a bird with wings wide enough to cover 2 roofs at once. Why are we so monumentally slow? Soldiers stalk a pharmacy, big guns, little pills. If you tilt your head just slightly, it's ridiculous. There's a place in this brain where hate won't grow. I touch its riddle, wind and seeds. Something pokes us as we sleep. It's late, but everything comes next. And then I think I will close with, I'm overly stimulated here, as I said to Travis. It's too bad because I like being with you so much. Good thing we have a few more events here.